A 2,000-year-old scroll from the Roman town of Herculaneum has been digitally unwrapped.
But what was found here, with the help of artificial intelligence, could change the way we understand history.
In a breakthrough that has stunned both classical scholars and technologists alike, the mysteries of the Herculaneum scrolls are finally being revealed.
And how AI is helping scientists digitally unwrap this ancient, burnt Roman scroll.
These ancient texts, carbonized by the fury of Mount Vesuvius nearly 2,000 years ago, have defied scholars for centuries, their priceless knowledge locked away in fragile, blackened coils. Now, through an unprecedented combination of cutting-edge AI technology and international collaboration, researchers have accomplished what many deemed impossible: reading these scrolls without destroying them. This remarkable achievement not only provides a window into ancient philosophical thought, but also demonstrates how modern innovation can illuminate the darkest corners of our past. In 1752, workers digging a well near Naples, Italy, made an extraordinary discovery that would puzzle scholars for centuries. Deep beneath layers of hardened volcanic material, they uncovered a villa containing over 1,800 carbonized papyri scrolls, the only intact library from the classical world ever found.
This is the only extant library from antiquity that survived.
This remarkable collection was discovered in what we now call the Villa of the Papyri in Herculaneum, a seaside resort town that, like its more famous neighbor Pompeii, was devastated by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. The villa itself was no ordinary residence. Archaeological evidence strongly suggests it belonged to Lucius Calpurnius Piso Caesoninus, Julius Caesar's father-in-law and a prominent Roman statesman. Piso was known to be a patron of Epicurean philosophy and the arts, explaining the extraordinary collection found within his walls. The sheer scale of the library, with hundreds of scrolls carefully organized, indicates it was a center of intellectual activity in the Roman world. What makes this discovery particularly significant is its uniqueness. While fragments of ancient texts have survived through medieval copies, the Herculaneum scrolls represent the only known library from antiquity discovered in its original setting. These aren't later reproductions or selections. They're the actual books that educated Romans would have read and studied. The scrolls themselves contained works predominantly in Greek, covering topics from philosophy to rhetoric, music, and ethics. Many were written by the Epicurean philosopher Philodemus, who served as a philosopher in residence at the villa. For historians, these texts offered the tantalizing possibility of accessing lost knowledge, including potentially undiscovered works by classical authors. But there was a heartbreaking problem. The intense heat from the volcanic eruption had transformed these precious documents into charred, brittle cylinders, resembling nothing so much as lumps of coal. Any attempt to physically unroll them typically resulted in their destruction, with fragments crumbling to dust at the slightest touch. For over 270 years, scholars were faced with an agonizing dilemma: leave the scrolls unread or risk destroying them in the attempt to access their contents. But what exactly happened during that fateful eruption that both preserved and nearly destroyed these precious texts forever? The irony of the Herculaneum scrolls' survival lies in how catastrophically destructive their preservation method was. On August 24, 79 AD, Mount Vesuvius unleashed one of history's most infamous volcanic eruptions. Unlike Pompeii, which was primarily buried in ash, Herculaneum was hit by pyroclastic surges, superheated flows of gas and volcanic matter that reached temperatures of nearly 400 degrees Celsius, 752 degrees Fahrenheit. These blistering surges instantly carbonized organic materials throughout the city. Within the Villa of the Papyri, the intense heat transformed the papyrus scrolls into what essentially became charcoal cylinders. The physical structure of the scrolls remained largely intact, but they were now blackened, brittle, and incredibly fragile. The villa itself was buried under approximately 20 meters, 65 feet, of volcanic material that hardened into rock. This deep burial both protected the scrolls from exposure to oxygen and moisture, factors that typically decay ancient materials, made them essentially inaccessible until their chance discovery centuries later. The carbonization process created a preservation paradox. While it protected the scrolls from decomposition, it also rendered the text almost impossible to read. The papyrus and the ink used to write on it were both carbon-based, and the extreme heat reduced both to nearly identical charcoal. This meant there was almost no contrast between the writing and its background, like trying to read black text on a black page. Additionally, the scrolls were compressed and warped by the weight of volcanic debris, fusing layers together and creating complex internal structures. Some scrolls were reduced to solid lumps, with no visible separation between layers. The physical trauma of the eruption, combined with the carbonization process, created objects that preserved their content while simultaneously making that content nearly impossible to access. For centuries, this preservation by destruction created an archaeological catch-22. These priceless texts survived, but accessing them seemed to require their destruction. How many attempts were made, and at what cost to these irreplaceable artifacts? The history of attempts to read the Herculaneum scrolls is a cautionary tale of good intentions leading to irreparable damage. In the late 18th century, when the first scrolls were discovered, scholars were eager to access their contents. King Charles III of Spain, who funded the excavations, appointed Father Antonio Piaggio to develop a method for unrolling the delicate manuscripts. Piaggio created an ingenious but painfully slow machine that used silk threads attached to animal membrane to gradually pull apart the layers. While somewhat successful, the process took up to 4 years to unroll a single scroll. Even then, many fragments were lost in the process. Despite these limitations, Piaggio's method was the best available for nearly a century. During the Napoleonic era, more aggressive approaches emerged. When Naples came under French control in 1802, hundreds of scrolls were gifted to Napoleon. His scholars attempted chemical methods, including fumigation with chlorine gas and applications of various solvents like ether and mercury. These harsh treatments often dissolved the scrolls entirely or left them in unreadable fragments. Perhaps the most notorious example came from Sir Humphrey Davy, the famous British chemist who in 1819 experimented with alcohol-based solutions. While he successfully separated some layers, the process often destroyed the very text he hoped to save. Another British scholar, Reverend John Hayter, managed to unroll around 200 scrolls, but the methods he employed damaged or destroyed many in the process. By the mid-20th century, more careful physical approaches were developed. Norwegian scholar Knut Klev used a combination of humidity control and careful manual separation, revealing small portions of text. However, even these improved methods ultimately damaged the scrolls. Traditional imaging techniques like multispectral imaging, successfully used on other ancient texts, proved largely ineffective due to the lack of contrast between the carbonized ink and carbonized papyrus. X-ray fluorescence, which can detect metallic elements in inks, also failed because ancient Mediterranean inks were carbon-based, not metallic. By the early 2000s, scholars had reached an impasse. Physical unrolling remained too destructive, and imaging technologies couldn't penetrate the carbonized layers effectively. The scroll's secrets seemed permanently locked away until technology opened a door that no one had previously thought possible. So what changed? How did modern technology finally crack this ancient mystery? In March 2023, an unconventional approach to the Herculaneum scrolls problem emerged that would fundamentally alter the landscape of papyrology. Computer scientist Brent Seals from the University of Kentucky joined forces with tech entrepreneurs Nat Friedman, former CEO of GitHub, and Daniel Gross to launch the Vesuvius Challenge, a global competition with over $1 million in prizes designed to incentivize technological solutions for reading the carbonized scrolls. The challenge represented a radical departure from traditional academic approaches. Rather than limiting the problem to a small circle of experts, the organizers democratized the process, releasing high-quality CT scan data of several scrolls to the public and inviting anyone to develop methods for reading them. This open-source approach was virtually unprecedented in the field of ancient textual studies. "We're using the competition format to accelerate discovery," Friedman explained in interviews. "By putting these scans in the hands of thousands of skilled people around the world, we're dramatically increasing the chances of a breakthrough." The prize structure was strategically designed to reward incremental progress. The grand prize of $700,000 would go to the first team that could read 4 passages of text, each containing at least 140 characters. Smaller progress prizes ranged from $50,000 for detecting ink in the scans to $40,000 for reading a single word. What made the Vesuvius Challenge particularly powerful was its cross-disciplinary nature. It attracted computer scientists, AI researchers, imaging specialists, and classical scholars, people who might never have collaborated under traditional academic structures. Participants shared insights on the challenge's Discord server, creating an unusually collaborative, competitive environment. The data itself came from 2 scrolls that had been scanned using advanced X-ray tomography at the Diamond Light Source synchrotron in the UK. These scans produced terabytes of data showing the internal structure of the scrolls in microscopic detail, down to 8 microns, smaller than a red blood cell. While the scans themselves weren't new, having been created in 2019, the challenge put them in the hands of machine learning experts who could apply new AI techniques to the problem. Behind the scenes, the challenge was supported by an impressive advisory board including papyrologists, computer scientists, and imaging experts from institutions including Oxford University, the University of Kentucky, and the Institut de France. This expert guidance ensured that the competition remained scientifically rigorous while encouraging innovative approaches. The Vesuvius Challenge didn't just offer prizes, it offered hope where traditional methods had failed. But what technological approaches would ultimately crack this ancient puzzle? The technological breakthrough that finally unlocked the Herculaneum scrolls came from combining 3 cutting-edge approaches: advanced CT scanning machine learning algorithms, and a computational process known as virtual unwrapping. The foundation of this success was the high-resolution CT scan data. Using synchrotron-based X-ray phase contrast tomography at the Diamond Light Source facility in the UK, researchers created detailed 3-dimensional models of the scroll's internal structure. Unlike conventional CT scans used in medicine, these specialized scans could resolve details as small as 8 microns, approximately 1/10 the thickness of a human hair. This exceptional resolution was crucial for detecting the subtle differences between ink and papyrus. The real game changer, however, was the application of machine learning to this mountain of data. Traditional computer analysis struggled with the scrolls because carbonized ink and carbonized papyrus appear nearly identical to the human eye. AI models, however, could be trained to detect subtler patterns. The key insight came from understanding that ancient ink, while carbon-based, contained traces of metal and had a slightly different density than the papyrus itself. These minute differences were invisible to conventional analysis but could be detected by sophisticated machine learning algorithms. Luke Farrater, one of the competition winners, developed a neural network specifically designed to differentiate between these nearly identical materials. "It's like teaching a computer to see differences that human eyes can't perceive," explained Brent Seals in a PBS interview. The algorithm learns to recognize patterns in the data that correspond to ink on a deeper level than visual appearance. Once the AI identified potential ink traces within the scans, the third piece of the puzzle came into play: virtual unwrapping. This computational technique, pioneered by Seals years earlier, involved several steps. First, researchers created a detailed map of each papyrus layer within the scroll. Next, they computationally flattened these curved surfaces into virtual sheets. Finally, they applied the ink detection results to these flattened surfaces, revealing text without ever physically touching the fragile scrolls. The process required enormous computational resources, processing terabytes of data through multiple algorithmic stages. Teams used graphics processing units typically employed for deep learning and video game rendering to accelerate the analysis. Some participants even leveraged cloud computing services to run their algorithms at scale. What made this approach revolutionary was its completely non-invasive nature. For the first time, researchers could access the scroll's contents without risking their destruction. The technology essentially allowed scholars to read the scrolls while leaving them perfectly intact for future generations. But the most surprising aspect of this technological breakthrough wasn't just what was accomplished, it was who accomplished it. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the Herculaneum scroll's breakthrough was that it wasn't achieved by seasoned professors or industry veterans. but primarily by students still early in their academic careers. The main winners of the Vesuvius Challenges Grand Prize exemplify how fresh perspectives can solve problems that have stumped experts for centuries. Luke Farrator, a 21-year-old undergraduate computer science student at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, made the first major breakthrough in October 2023. Working independently from his dorm room, Farrator became the first person to decipher a complete word from the scrolls, the Greek word for purple, porphyros. This achievement earned him the $40,000 First Letters Prize and established a methodology that would prove crucial to later success. "I was in disbelief," Farrator told the University of Nebraska news site. "I checked it 3 or 4 times because I didn't believe it was real." Almost simultaneously, Youssef Nader, a 26-year-old Egyptian graduate student in biorobotics at Freie University Berlin, independently developed a similar approach and identified the same word, earning a $10,000 Progress Prize. The parallel discovery highlighted the power of the competition's open-source approach. These early successes created momentum that led to the formation of a trio when Julian Schilliger, a 27-year-old Swiss student pursuing a master's degree in robotics, joined Farrator and Nader. Together they refined their methods and pushed the technology further, ultimately winning the $700,000 grand prize in February 2024 for deciphering over 2,000 characters of text. The students brought fresh approaches to the challenge, unhindered by traditional disciplinary boundaries. Farrator had previously interned at SpaceX, bringing a problem-solving mindset from the aerospace industry. Nader combined insights from biorobotics with signal processing techniques. Schilliger contributed expertise in computational visualization. Their success demonstrated how democratizing access to archaeological data could yield unexpected results. Working remotely across different continents and time zones, these students collaborated virtually, sharing code and insights through online platforms, a research approach that would have been unimaginable just a decade earlier. The student winners became overnight celebrities in academic circles, invited to speak at prestigious institutions, including Oxford University and the Getty Villa. Their achievement sent a powerful message that groundbreaking contributions can come from anywhere, challenging the traditional hierarchies of academic research. With the technical barriers overcome, what ancient wisdom did these carbonized scrolls finally reveal? After centuries of silence, the decoded Herculaneum scrolls have begun to speak, revealing philosophical texts that provide unique insights into ancient Epicurean thought. The content transcribed so far primarily consists of works by Philodemus of Gadara, a 1st century BCE Epicurean philosopher who served as the intellectual in residence at the Villa of the Papyri. The first substantial passage decoded by the student team contained approximately 2,000 characters discussing the nature of pleasure, a central concept in Epicurean philosophy. Unlike the common misunderstanding of Epicureanism as simple hedonism, the text reveals a nuanced discussion of pleasure as the absence of pain and disturbance. The highest pleasures are often simple and easily attained, reads one partially translated section, while the pursuit of excessive luxury brings troubles and anxiety. This aligns with core Epicurean teachings that moderation leads to greater happiness than excess, a philosophy that contrasted sharply with the lavish lifestyles of many wealthy Romans. Another significant discovery came in February 2025 when researchers working with the 5th intact scroll, catalogued as P. Herculaneum 172 at Oxford's Bodleian Libraries, identified the Greek word diatrope, meaning disgust or aversion. This word appears twice in the newly decoded text, which seems to discuss psychological responses to pleasures and pains. Finding this word in context gives us new insights into how ancient philosophers understood negative emotions, explained one Oxford researcher. This isn't just about reading random words, it's about reconstructing entire systems of ancient thought. The scrolls also contain discussions of music theory, with one passage describing how certain musical modes affect human emotions. Another section addresses the nature of poetry and its relationship to philosophy, a hotly debated topic in the ancient world. Beyond their philosophical content, the scrolls provide valuable linguistic information. The vocabulary, grammar, and writing style helps scholars better understand Koine Greek, the common language of the Mediterranean world during this period. Even the handwriting itself, now visible through virtual unwrapping, offers clues about ancient scribal practices. Perhaps most tantalizingly, scholars have identified references to works by other philosophers whose writings have been lost to history. These include mentions of early Stoic thinkers and possibly even fragments quoted from pre-Socratic philosophers whose works survive only in such second-hand citations. As the decoding process continues, researchers expect to find an even broader range of topics. The villa's library likely contained works on rhetoric, mathematics, and natural philosophy, reflecting the broad intellectual interests of educated Romans in the 1st century BCE. With these initial successes, what does the future hold for the remaining Herculaneum scrolls and similar artifacts worldwide? The breakthroughs with the Herculaneum scrolls have opened exciting new frontiers for both archaeological research and artificial intelligence applications. Building on their initial success, the Vesuvius Challenge organizers announced in March 2024 a new phase focused on decoding 90% of 4 complete scrolls, offering additional prizes totaling $100,000. At Oxford University's Bodleian Libraries, researchers are now applying the same techniques to their collection of Herculaneum fragments with promising early results. Similarly, the Naples National Archaeological Museum, which houses the largest collection of the scrolls, has initiated a comprehensive scanning program for its hundreds of unrolled specimens. The technology's applications extend beyond the Herculaneum scrolls. Researchers are already adapting these methods for other carbonized texts, including papyri found at sites in Egypt and Israel. There's even potential for reading ink on ancient pottery shards, ostraca, and metal scrolls that have corroded over time. Perhaps most exciting is the possibility of discovering literary works thought lost forever. The Villa of the Papyri has only been partially excavated, with geophysical surveys suggesting the structure extends further under the modern town of Herculano. Many scholars believe additional rooms containing Latin texts, potentially including lost works by authors like Livy, Ennius, or even early versions of familiar classics, may still lie buried beneath the volcanic rock. The technical approaches pioneered through the Vesuvius Challenge are also influencing broader digital humanities research. Similar machine learning methods are being adapted to enhance faded manuscripts from medieval Europe, deteriorated bamboo texts from ancient China, and water-damaged documents from around the world. As Richard Janko, a classics professor at the University of Michigan, put it, "We're entering a new era where technology allows us to recover texts once thought permanently lost to time."